I discovered my wife had been cheating for years. I dropped divorce papers, vanished, and cut her off financially. Her life is falling apart, and I just found out something that has changed my life forever. And not for the better. It's so hard to trust people these days. I thought my parents had the perfect marriage, and I always wanted something like that. Two people who trust each other completely, never betray one another, and plan to grow old together. But now, I wonder if such relationships even exist. Maybe they do, but it feels like luck. Someone might seem trustworthy but still hide massive secrets. I, a 33-year-old man, have been married to my wife 30 for 3 years. We dated for several years before that. She loved me like I had never been loved before, and I gave her the same energy in return. To me, our relationship felt like it was on its way to becoming the ideal my parents had. But I've learned the hard way. No matter how much someone seems genuine, you can never know what's truly going on inside their head or behind the scenes. We met in college. I had moved out of state to study, while she stayed in her home state. She loved sharing stories about her childhood and teenage years. One story she often told was about her first boyfriend from high school. Let's call him Desmond. Their relationship was typical of young love, passionate, naive, and short-lived. It ended after about a year. She said Desmond reached out to her a few times after their breakup, even before we met, but she always rebuffed him politely. When we started dating, she would tell me whenever he contacted her. I appreciated her honesty, which made it easier to trust her. But everything changed recently. My wife, let's call her Bianca, came home after shopping one day. We talked, ate dinner, and then she mentioned that Desmond had reached out again. She said he was being needy, but she told him she was married and wasn't interested in reconnecting. That made me proud. We even joked about how desperate it was for him to keep pestering an ex. After dinner, I went to the kitchen to make myself some tea. While preparing my tea, I noticed Bianca engrossed in her phone. She then placed it on the couch and went to the fridge to grab a bottle of juice. What happened next unfolded quickly. I stepped back to the couch and noticed Bianca had left her phone with the screen on. It was open to a messenger conversation, and I was almost certain the contact name said Des. There was a heart emoji from her side of the chat. But before I could take a closer look, she suddenly appeared beside me. It was like she had taken long strides across the room. Without sitting down, she snatched her phone off the couch. I noticed her glancing at me from the corner of her eye, but I pretended not to notice. Instead, I started an unrelated conversation, and only then did she seem to relax and settle down. I wasn't stupid, though. Even though I hadn't seen anything concrete, her reaction raised my suspicions. I debated confronting her immediately, but I decided against it. If I acted like I hadn't seen anything, I would have the advantage of investigating without her knowing. If I confronted her, she could deny it, lie, or give me a watered-down version of the truth. The next morning, Bianca went to take a shower, leaving her phone charging. As soon as I heard the water running, I grabbed her phone and opened it. A new message from Desmond said, "Good morning." Ignoring it, I scrolled through their conversation. What I found shattered my trust. The impression she had given me of her relationship with Desmond, that he was a desperate ex and she was indifferent, was a lie. Their messages were warm and affectionate, mutual in tone. I didn't have time to go through everything before I heard the water stop. Quickly, I put the phone back and acted like nothing had happened. Bianca didn't seem to notice anything and went about her day as usual, working on her art projects. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop stewing over what I had seen. I knew enough to start a massive fight, but I also knew there was more to uncover. Patience was key. That night, after Bianca fell asleep, I decided to dig deeper. I logged into her Facebook account from my laptop, deleting the evidence of the login from her email. It was risky, but I knew she rarely checked her active sessions. Once inside, I started combing through their messages. It was a long thread, and I knew it would take more than one night to read everything. But what I did read revealed even more devastating truths. They had been talking regularly for years, not sporadically as she had claimed. Their conversations were full of affection, contradicting the cold, distant image she painted of their interactions. Scattered among the messages were hints that they had slept together, though I couldn't tell how many times. By the time I finished reading that night, I knew there was no salvaging our marriage. I couldn't be with her anymore. Over the next day and night, I continued to gather evidence, documenting every incriminating message in case she deleted them. I searched for divorce lawyers and planned to make my decision the following day. I was devastated. The woman I had trusted and loved with all my heart had betrayed me for years. Part of me wished I could go back to the blissful ignorance of not knowing, but there was no turning back now. I didn't find everything out immediately, but now that I know the truth, a big part of me is relieved. It hurts, yes, but it's better than living in ignorance. Bianca has been lying to me for years. This is a woman who contributes financially only through her Etsy page, where she sells arts and crafts. Sure, she takes care of the household chores and enjoys her creative hobbies, but I've been the one providing the majority of the income, ensuring we both live comfortably. And all this time, she was cheating on me with her high school ex. It's infuriating. I've worked so hard to give her a good life, and she repaid me by betraying me with someone from her past. Now that I've gone through their entire message history, I know the full extent of her infidelity. They've slept together multiple times, and this affair has been going on for years. Even before we got married, looking back, I realized that her openness about Desmond wasn't genuine. It was a deliberate tactic to throw me off the scent. It worked, but not anymore now that I know everything. I'm determined to end this. She has no idea that I'm planning to leave her, and I want to hit her where it hurts. Not physically, of course. I'm better than that, but emotionally and financially. Part of me fantasizes about some elaborate revenge, like sleeping with her sister or doing something equally dramatic. But I know that's unrealistic. The truth is, this whole situation is a punch to the gut. Nothing in life is as perfect as it seems. I thought I had a happy, loyal partner, but instead, I was unknowingly funding her secret affair. I've already started taking steps to protect myself. I'm documenting everything, securing my finances, and lining up a divorce lawyer. I'll provide an update when I can, hopefully sharing that the divorce is finalized and that I've moved on with my life. This has been a tough hill to climb, but at least now I know the truth. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's better than living in blissful ignorance. Karma has a way of catching up to people, and I can only hope that Bianca gets what's coming to her since my last update. So much has happened that it feels like a whirlwind. It's been only 2 months, but I finally feel like things are going my way, while everything is crumbling for Bianca. Here's how it all unfolded. The first thing I did was secure a divorce lawyer. After lengthy discussions, I chose one who specialized in protecting high-earning clients. Being in the tech industry, I earn a lot, and I needed someone who could shield my wealth. I'd been fine supporting Bianca financially before, but once I discovered her betrayal, I knew I had to protect myself. Once the divorce papers were ready, I planned my exit carefully. While Bianca was out of the house, I began packing. It took me a few days to move my essential belongings without raising suspicion. Once I was ready, I left the house and relocated to a neighboring city, where I'd booked a hotel room. Then, I gave my lawyer the green light. The moment Bianca realized I was gone, she messaged me. "Someone just dropped off divorce papers. This has to be a joke, right?" I didn't reply. She started calling repeatedly, but I ignored every single one. Her messages turned hysterical, demanding to know what she'd done wrong. My response was one word: Desmond. Then, I blocked her on every platform imaginable. For nearly a month, she avoided signing the papers. When she finally did, it was a relief. The next day, I decided to answer one of the unknown number calls I'd been ignoring. Sure enough, it was her. After an awkward silence, she finally said, "Hi." I replied, "What do you want?" There was more silence before she asked, "Where are you?" I told her she'd never know, and advised her not to bother trying. She started crying, saying, "I'm not doing good at all." Her tears didn't evoke any sympathy. If anything, it made me feel better knowing that she was struggling. Then she confessed that money was tight and begged for my help to get through the month. I considered it for a moment, not because I cared, but because I didn't want her to die. Ultimately, I decided, F her. She has family nearby who can help her if it's truly dire. I hung up the phone. Bianca kept calling 8 more times, but I let it ring each time. Then, a week later, my lawyer called, clearly amused. Bianca had contacted him, claiming she was broke and starving, hoping he'd relay the message to me. It didn't work. She has a sister who lives just 40 minutes away, but it seems she's too proud or ashamed to let her family know how bad things have gotten. Sooner or later, they'll find out. Her life is a mess, and honestly, I can't feel sorry for her. She created this disaster, and now she's living with the consequences. I, on the other hand, am moving forward. Life feels lighter without her lies weighing me down. It's been just 2 months since my last update, but so much has happened. Finally, I feel like things are going my way while they're spiraling horribly for her. I'll do my best to recount everything that has unfolded. The first step I took was finding the right divorce lawyer. I knew I needed someone prepared to fight tooth and nail to protect my wealth. Being in the tech industry, I earn a significant income, which I was happy to share with Bianca while we were married. I didn't mind supporting her as long as it made her happy. But when our marriage crumbled, it was clear I needed to safeguard my finances. After thorough research, I chose a lawyer with an excellent reputation. Once the papers were ready, I started packing discreetly while Bianca was out. It took a few days to gather everything important without raising suspicion, but as soon as I was ready, I left the house and checked into a hotel in a neighboring city. I informed my lawyer to proceed, and soon after, Bianca texted me in disbelief. "Someone just gave me divorce papers. This has to be a joke, right?" I didn't reply. She called repeatedly, but I ignored every call. Finally, she sent a desperate message asking, "What did I do wrong?" I responded with one word, "Desmond." Then I blocked her on every platform. She tried calling from unknown numbers, but I avoided them. I left communication to my lawyer, who acted as the buffer for everything. It took nearly a month before she signed the papers. Afterward, she called me from yet another unknown number. This time, I answered. Her voice was quiet at first. She managed a shaky, "Hi," and I coldly replied, "What do you want?" She broke down crying, eventually saying, "I'm not doing good at all." I felt no sympathy. Her life falling apart was a small fraction of the pain she had caused me. She confessed that money was tight and asked for my help to get through the month. I thought about it briefly. While I didn't wish for her to starve, I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. So I simply hung up. Once the divorce proceedings began, Bianca demanded 50% of my assets. Her lawyer even tried negotiating for 25%, but I stood firm, relying on my lawyer's assurance that we could achieve a better outcome. When we went to court, my evidence of her long-term infidelity and lack of contribution to our household worked in my favor. The judge ruled that the house would be sold, the mortgage paid off, and the remaining funds split equally. Bianca was awarded a modest sum, which would barely last her 2 years, given her reckless spending. Her sister even called me, pleading for help because Bianca refused to take responsibility for her situation. I didn't intervene. Watching Bianca's life unravel gave me a sense of closure. Once, I loved her deeply, but her betrayal cut too deep. She destroyed our marriage, and now she's facing the consequences. If there's a lesson to be learned, it's this. Your partner should always prioritize your relationship. If they can't cut ties with someone who poses a threat to your bond, it's time to reevaluate your importance in their life.